whatever word you want to now put in there, in town. Our office is down by the Aeronaut, right next to Jeff Ruby's. Just give a little bit of geography there. So that is who we are as a company. My name is Katie Coleman. I am a UX designer at Gaslight, and designers at the company kind of run the full gamut of design. We do like the UX research, the UI design, and then we actually bring it through into the front-end implementation as well. So our designers do HTML and CSS code too. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. And this is Haley.
I'm Haley Moore. I'm also a designer there and the UX design manager there. So I'm doing the same thing as Katie. And working on that. So how many of you have done empathy matching? Cool. That's awesome. So that we're excited to hopefully show you something new. So empathy mapping. Why should we learn? Would you make me the door? Sorry. Thanks. So why should we learn this? Whenever we're building a product, whether that's an application or even like any sort of skincare product or consumer packaging, whatever that may be, whenever we're creating something like that, we need to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the mindset of our users. As much as we might also use things that are similar to that, we are not our user. And like the closer you are to building it, I feel like the harder it is to remove your bias of a product or a project and make sure that you're reframing what you're doing to focus on your user. So we should learn this because we should all be design thinking facilitators. So facilitate comes from the word facile. I don't know if I'm actually saying that right, like whether it's flat, but facile, which means to make easier. And you probably want to know what is design thinking. So design thinking helps organizations focus on people they're creating for, which leads to better products, services, and internal processes. So whether you're a stakeholder on a project, whether you're a designer or a developer or a QA person, you should be able to participate in these kinds of exercises and conversations. Welcome, come on in. Hey.
Empathy, what we're learning.
Yeah. So we just got started, and we're talking about how everyone should be design thinking facilitators, and empathy mapping is just an exercise on design thinking. So that is what we're going to do today. We're going to go through that exercise. Sweet. In order to do this, and the reason why we're doing this is in order to build the best consumer experience, we need to do a couple things. We need to be able to communicate with each other. I'm going to do that in the drawing. So when you have a project or you have an idea, say this person has an idea and this person has an idea. You think you're talking about this, but this person is thinking about this, and this person is thinking about this. I'm sure this is not an unfamiliar diagram. So this exercise, not only is the outcome useful, but the dialogue and the communication around it and the conversation, how you get to the end product is what's so important. We're seeking alignment. So going through and sort of finding out, where are there things that you guys agree upon or things that you don't agree upon, and how do you kind of tackle what is going to be the most important to your user and agree upon, how they need to get to that circle or whatever that circle represents, what that solution is, seeking alignment and how you're going to build the product or find the solution together. You also need to be able to make decisions, and those need to be informed decisions because arbitrary or personally biased decisions aren't helpful to the end user. We'll be able to craft solutions, so building the end product. We'll be able to plan for the future. So, when you're doing something like release planning and trying to prioritize, what is going to deliver the most value to someone the fastest, being able to reframe it and think about the user, their motivation, what they say, think, do, and feel is going to be really key to making sure you're building the right thing first and failing as soon as you can in order to get to the right thing. And again, the biggest thing is we're finding a shared understanding. So even if this exercise, even if like the sticky notes crumble to the ground, you couldn't read them, the fact that we had the conversation conversation and got something out of just getting texture understanding together is what is so valuable. So at Gaslight, there's a lot of different design thinking exercises that we do. We do story mapping, journey mapping, empathy mapping, so lots of maps. We even have a talk that's like, there's so many of these maps. Here's a map to get you out of there or something, right? Yes. We do wireframing, so here's an example of wireframing where we're trying to, before we get into high fidelity design or even implementation, just trying to make some quick decisions on, how does a user get from point A to point B, and trying to find and eliminate risks as we go as quick as we can. We do UI flow diagrams, showing how a user would go through and actually go through to accomplish whatever problem they're trying to solve. So there's a lot of tools that we like to use there. And the big thing that we do at Gaslight is we do story mapping, and that is really just a prioritization of and showing the flow of what we're going to do, and it kind of focuses on the actions and features that people are going to do, and prioritizing that when releasing.
Yeah, so it's like kind of a big picture illustration of what the process is that we're trying to solve for, or what the process is that we're trying to fit into. So it kind of paints a picture of these are the things we understand, where are the holes, and help us fill that in.
But before we can do that, we need, if we're trying to focus on the best consumer experience, we need to be able to reframe that from the user's perspective. So that brings us to empathy mapping. So we're gonna start there. Exercise together.
So empathy mapping. The goal of empathy mapping is to paint a holistic picture of the user. So a lot of times we think of creating personas, we come up with the demographic information, like how old are they, how much do they make, where do they live, but we tend to leave out the more qualitative aspects of our users, and what are the motivators, what makes them tick. And so the idea here is that we want to be able to paint that whole picture and make sure we're not leaving any of that out, because those things really are what we want to focus on when we're thinking, what does our user really need? How are we going to best solve their problem? Because we're catering to who they are at their essence. So basically, this is what an empathy map looks like. We've got a few around the room, but we've got our user in the middle, Clarice here, our bank teller, for example. We like to name our users that when we're empathy mapping, and it's kind of kitschy and cheesy, but it really helps to kind of personalize it. And this is a nice illustration to draw people, right? The quadrants are says, thinks, does, and feels, and it creates a framework of how we're going to think about things, but it's really trying to get in their head. So let's give it a whirl. We're going to break into groups and do an exercise of empathy mapping. We've got users defined. Just for the sake of time, we went ahead and did some of that demographic, very light demographic definition, but we're going to rely on you guys to kind of do that qualitative piece of it. The problem space that we're going to try and work within is connecting people and businesses in the wellness industry with their appropriate clientele. And the problem there is that, well, I guess more specifically, because that's kind of it's specific but still broad and vague, but more specifically, we're going to talk about yoga, bar, Pilates instructors. Those are our businesses, and then the clientele are any individuals who are interested in those types of services. So the problems that they're having is the yoga instructor, for example, is struggling to maintain and manage their clients. And the clientele are those people interested in these services struggle to know where to start if they're new to the space, and they struggle to know how to advance if they're already really involved and they feel like they've kind of plateaued, and how do they really get any further in this. So one thing to keep in mind as we're going through this, everything is a prototype. So all of this is a work in progress. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to kind of get ideas out there. So don't feel like you're getting married to anything you write down on a sticky. This is just the beginning. We're going to keep this going, ideally, throughout the project. You're going to keep referring to this and refining as you learn more. Because while we are getting into the mindset of our users, we still are not our users. So some of this is still based on assumption. You won't have enough time, and you won't have enough information, and you'll still have questions, and that's okay. It's kind of the nature of this exercise. None of this is a problem. It just is it's a starting point for us to really dive in. So, the 3 users, I talked about the different user groups, but specifically we're gonna have a user 1, yoga instructor, female, she's 32 and she struggles to manage her clients.
She'll be over here.
She will be here. And user 2, he is a developer and he is 24 and he is interested in yoga but doesn't know where to start, and he's gonna be over here. And our user 3 is an experienced yogi and she is 29 and is interested in one-on-one coaching in order to kind of get a little further. She feels like those general classes she's kind of hitting a wall there. So we can go ahead and break into groups. The first step when we do that is we're going to start writing on stickies and putting things up on the wall. As you're doing that, make sure that you are just kind of like letting it flow. If you see something up there on the wall that you were thinking about writing down, go ahead and write it down again, because duplicates really just kind of reinforce that point. And we're going to do this silently. So if you want, we can go ahead and break into groups.
There is a third whiteboard out in the hallway, which might help when we are chatty and we can look a little bit loud in here. So group 3 can be standing out in the hallway.
So we've got 2, 4, 6, 12. So we'll break into groups of 4. That works? Go for it.
Nope.
You want to do plus?
Sure, just do it. No problem.
Rather than being like, you should work here and not use your service, we need roofers at this project.
You guys need to grab post-its
This place is the time we work.
or your
And
pen.
usually, it's like, these are the skill sets we need at these places, we need to move labor around. I think that's, for a foreman, that would be. Yeah. Thank you, great product, yeah.
This is a white. There you go.
We're over prepared.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
The general interest in health and wellness
Yeah, yeah.
You participating or just recording?
Just recording.
Can't be in the.
YouTube Live. YouTube Live.
I know you got the cell phone, you really just,
I know.
He's doing that, yeah.
because that's how I take pictures.
Feel free to name your user too.
So I have one question. So these 3 are customers of the first one, potentially. Is that by designing is different? You're just doing different.
Yeah.
But like this was about the yoga instructor. So like, this is like the customer.
Yeah, so the problem space is that there's, like the yoga instructor, she doesn't know how to attract, maintain, and manage her clients, and then you
3
have,
different types of, these 3 different customers.
so the yoga instructor is one of our people, she's over there. But then there's also 2 types of clients. There's the clients who don't know how to get into it, and there are the clients who want to get into it. So that's, so
Okay,
2
so
of their
these are clientele.
Yes, yeah, this is clients.
So this is
Great ideas, yeah, I don't want to be stuck in a.
They have a different
Great
size.
concept.
Yeah, okay.
So,
This would be designed for the yoga instructor. doing this, or-
Are you talking about the?
Yeah,
Or is that
so, yeah, we on Friday,
Because they're all-
Thursday.
They're all same, they would all be users of the same solution, whatever that is.
Yeah, this isn't
But it's
for,
connecting 2 sites.
Okay.
yeah,
At least we're getting one side.
okay, thank you.
Changes to vary, but anybody else?
You guys come up with a name?
Matt,
Patty? Alright, that works.
yeah, NKU, all that stuff is there.
You
and-
guys want to write it on
Oh, my
the
pleasure, thanks.
We're gonna be doing this part for like 10-ish minutes or until it starts to slow down.
She doesn't feel mellow. She doesn't feel mellow.
Curious, is anyone able to relate to this problem space at all? Just from personal experience? No? Yeah?
Not really.
What do you think?
Not really.
Yeah. That's fine.
Different passion.
Yeah.
Just relate to that one.
Yeah.
Pictures of people taking pictures. It's Jack Johnson's song.
Is that Jack Johnson? We should have brought music.
Oh, it should have.
Still can. Like, you mean like a CD player?
CD player.
Like the music.
Playing music.